Howdy guys, I'm super excited to finally give you guys the objective review on Dragonlance, the second latest book from Wizards of the Coast, because I'm kind of a slow reader. Now, as stated previously, this will be my last objective review on official 5th edition content. Future reviews will be on homebrew supplements moving forward. But enough about that. I want to tell you guys about Dragonlance and whether it's worth adding to your collection or not. Dragonlance is a more gritty, dark fantasy war story adventure that takes your party from level 1 all the way to level 11. And in this video, I'll cover everything from the adventure's plot, NPCs, world building, things it did well, areas it can improve on, and I'll also touch on some of the other additional content this book adds to 5th edition, like subclasses, feats, races, magic items, sidekicks, and additional stat blocks. But I'll go into further detail about those things in a future video. So without further ado, go ahead and grab your adventuring gear and let's jump into this. Before we start this adventure, we get a little bit of a lore dump about the world of Krynn itself. That way we can understand what happened and what brought the world to its current state, along with how the world will kind of interact with our party moving forward. I really appreciated this as it did help really cut down a lot of the prep that we as DMs had to do to start this adventure by killing off most of the gods and giving us a really strong skeleton of what to do and what the adventure looks like. While the story for our players truly begins as they all make their way to the city of Vogler itself. In Vogler, they're all traveling to go to a funeral of a shared NPC that they all have history with. I think this was great as it gives us an alternative to the normal tavern meetup, while also giving us a strong opportunity to have our players really roleplay with one another as they swap stories about how they knew this central NPC. I really appreciate that the story starts slow enough that the party can really explore the local area and see the negative effects of the Dragon Army's approach. From Vogler, our players become more than just grieving friends of Isping and Greenshield and truly become some of the mercenaries and heroes that the world of Krynn needs to push back the Dragon Army. And the adventure does this by bringing our party from Vogler to the city of Kalaman. They're sent to explore the surrounding areas of Kalaman and again, truly seeing some of the devastation that the Dragon Army is bringing upon the world. And when they come back, that's when things really start to kick off. And that's when the party's goal truly becomes clear, because they're no longer being called upon just to stop the advancing army, but they're being called upon to stop one specific thing from happening and investigate that one thing. Where a small group of adventurers might not be able to stop a whole army in an advancing war, they can definitely go into key points and really delay the army's advances. And that's what our party does. They're the commandos, the special forces of this world. They go in and take out key objectives of the Dragon Army, making it impossible for them to advance. It's once we reach this point that our adventure truly opens up and gets off the rails a little bit, because the party now has a goal and is able to explore the world with a purpose. The adventure takes them to the Northern Waste, where there's so much for them to explore and so much for them to learn about the Dragon Army and their future goals. And once they're satisfied exploring the Northern Waste, they make their way to the Lost City. It's here in the Lost City that the party gets to really dig in deep about what they might have learned in the Northern Wastes. This is where we get to peel back another layer of the Dragon Army's goals and their intentions. Once you're done investigating the Lost City and they fully understand the gravity of what they're dealing with, things get really intense. They're put on the clock, having to rush back to Kalaman, where they can share the information and the gravitas of what the Dragon Army really wants. It's after sharing this information that the party is truly tasked with stopping the advancing army. Depending on what your players decide to do from this point, shapes the world of Krynn itself. If the players' plans are successful, they can really throw a wrench in the Dragon Army's plans. If not, the world of Krynn suffers for it. Now let's talk about the strengths of this book, the things that really made it work for me. First, we have the art. I absolutely love the art. The artists that Wizards of the Coast hire truly knock it out of the ballpark. The cover looks amazing, the creature arts look amazing, the things in between, all of it's just so good. After the art, I think the DM support provided in this book is just top tier. I absolutely loved it. In comparison to Spelljammer, where they gave us almost no help and just said figure it out yourself, Dragonlance gives us so much to work with. It gives us such a strong foundation that we can really build a world out for ourselves from it. I love how the adventure really starts with a small mini adventure for all of our players. With this mini adventure really depending on their characters' backstories, their classes, and what kind of character they want to build themselves. It's a great opportunity to really let them explore that character and dive a little bit deeper into the lore and backstory of that character without it being too forced. Another great idea that I think this book brought forth was the idea of rewarding feats to your party at certain levels. Because as a player, I found myself really struggling with wanting to pick up more feats, but also really wanting the ASIs. And I think giving feats out at certain levels really does relieve a lot of that stress. Another thing that I really appreciated for DM support was the gazetteers it gave us for each area, as it gives us a quick understanding and skeleton of the zones in case our players decide to explore somewhere else, not defined in this book. As a DM, I got super excited reading this book when I saw that they also incorporated the divine favors. I also really appreciate that a lot of the story isn't overtly linear. There's a lot of opportunity for our players to explore in whatever order they want and still be able to get all the information they need. Another thing that I thought this book did really well was the fact that it incorporated the board game and all these large-scale war mechanics. It adds something extra and different that you can do during your sessions while also rewarding your players for taking part in it. Now, you can always skip these parts, and I feel like most people will do that, but I just love that extra opportunity, that little extra option that you can do for your sessions. I really appreciate that this book gives us a lot of opportunities to have every player really participate in the adventure. There's a bunch of different skill checks throughout the whole adventure that really just bring them all in and give them all an opportunity to shine. And it gives them a lot of opportunities to avoid failure and really see what's going on around them, while still giving us a little bit of information in case the party does fail to see something. I really appreciate that this adventure does a great job of helping to shape our players into being the heroes of this world. The NPCs are more than just random nobodies that do nothing in the adventure, but instead are actually very helpful and help push the story along in a very organic way. And the last major strength of this book being fishing mechanics. I love that in the beginning of this adventure, our party gets the opportunity to fish, and it having some level of relevance, because it's just so out there, it's so mundane in this fantasy world, but it's fun. I love it. Now, there are some areas where I feel like this book can really improve on. One of these areas being the pacing. I do appreciate that the story isn't super linear or railroady, forcing the players to move from point A to point B on this really tight schedule. However, it's a little bit too slow at times also. Certain areas like the Northern Waste or the Lost City are so open-ended that the party can just wander around for many sessions, never really getting to any point. And that part kind of sucks. Because immediately after a lot of these really open areas, the book tells us, hey, try to put a sense of urgency in your party. That's a little bit difficult to do when so much of the story is very slow paced and just kind of lets the party do things at whatever rate they want. I feel like at times the stakes really just aren't high enough to really pressure the party into doing something with immediate urgency, unless something's chasing them down. But I don't like always using that as my go-to way. Now, in spite of how much I love that every player really gets to contribute to the adventure, what I don't like is when certain skill checks or certain events are just kind of automatically seen by the arbitrary statistic of the player with the highest passive perception. That really sets a low bar for certain things that I feel like should have a slightly higher bar. I feel like a better way to do this would be to have players with higher perceptions roll either at advantage or disadvantage, depending on how much above or how much below a certain DC our players are for each event. I think a lot of the NPCs were very well developed. However, near the end, there's a few NPCs that I feel like they're just kind of thrown in there just to be like gag characters. They don't really impact the story any, aside from just being there for that one quick line of information and then they move on. I understand, but I feel like if that's all you're gonna do, just make it a note, just make it a little book, just make it text on the wall that the party sees. No need to make a whole new character that the players have to interact with, ask weird questions, and then we have to figure out weird answers to. That's not that great in my opinion. But overall, I think most of the NPCs top tier. Another area where I feel like this book could really use some improvements on is the main antagonist. I don't like that a lot of the story is pushed forward through the use of the character Lord Soth, but it's constantly reminding us and telling us throughout the book, please don't have your party interact with him because he will wipe the floor with them. And looking at his stat block, he will wipe the floor with them. That's not a joke. He's crazy powerful, but he shouldn't be the main person pushing it forward then if he's that powerful. Because if your party is anything like my players, they're gonna go, nah, we can take him, and try to challenge him, and then get wiped out by him, and then blame me for wiping them out, or be upset that they all died. But regardless, I don't think that's a good way to handle it. It gives us so many opportunities to use Lord Soth's servants or other people related to him. I feel like just use those people instead, because that way if the party does decide to confront them, they have a chance. But constantly having Lord Soth there or like just barely miss them, I think that's kind of, you know, not fun. Speaking of things that I feel like are a little bit pointless, there's a lot of golden treasure handed out. Now, I know as DMs, we can always add whatever we want, whether it be magic shops or other vendors and merchants, but as written, there's not a lot of opportunity for the players to really spend their gold anywhere. All the towns are kind of dilapidated or not really running at super high functioning levels where they have a lot of magic items or things to really offer the party anyways. So it feels a little lackluster as a reward when they can't spend it. And my last major gripe about this whole adventure is that it all takes place in this really small section on the map. Like, we have this super big map, but the whole adventure, 1 through 11, takes place in one small area. What is that? We explored a little bit outside of that, but not very much. We talked about a lot of other areas very often throughout the whole adventure. We never get to see them. Now, I understand that after the adventure, it does open up to let the party explore the rest of the world, but I kind of wish they gave us a little bit more about these other areas. And speaking of the small area this adventure takes in, it's stupid how it describes its location. In the book, it goes,
all right, this is central.
Then you look at the map, you look in the center, it's not in the middle, it's off center. Everything is skewed. Its directions that it provides in the book and the actual location on the map do not match up. Now, maybe these are a bunch of typos where they got all the areas slightly askew, but that stuff makes no sense. I hated that because I love looking at maps and I was trying to map out everywhere that the party was going. I'm like,
where the hell is this? This isn't here. Nope, this is actually skewed this way.
So every time it says west, it's actually northwest. Like, I don't like having to mess around with the maps like that because I would hand the map out to my party and they would also do the same thing. Like,
where the hell are we? Where is this? You said central. We're looking in the middle. It's not in the middle.
But again, small grapes, small grapes. I would appreciate it being a little more accurate with the maps. Now, let's talk about some of the additional content provided in this book. I didn't think it was right to really add this part in my overall objective rating of the book because it's a lot of supplementary stuff, and you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt also. All the backgrounds and all the extra feats provided in this book are highly geared for this campaign. So much so that it even states that a prerequisite to have these feats or these backgrounds is to be running this campaign in particular, because outside of it, they don't make sense and they don't really fit. Now, when it comes to the subclass introduced in this campaign, it isn't hyper-focused for this world in particular. The lore might be, but the subclass itself can easily be applied to any homebrew world you create. And I actually found it really fun and really interesting to look at. One thing I was a little disappointed about when it comes to additional content was there wasn't any new spells introduced. With the new subclass revolving around the moon, I was really hoping we'd get new spells that also revolved around the moons, but that wasn't present. Oh well. Some of the adventure gear introduced in this adventure was fun and wacky, but I don't feel like they serve that much of a purpose outside of this campaign. I feel most people use other items to kind of do the exact same thing in their own homebrew worlds anyways. When it comes to the magic items in this book, there weren't very many, and honestly, I felt a little underwhelmed by them. They weren't that bad, but they're not anything really to be super excited about to try to add into your own world. Where I think the additional content really shines though is the additional monster stat blocks and the helpers or sidekicks. I absolutely loved a lot of the new stat blocks and a lot of the new monsters introduced in this book. The Draconians were all super fun. I love the fact that they all have some wacky thing that they do when they die. And I absolutely loved every single stat block related to Lord Soth. His stat block, amazing, beautiful. I can't wait to throw him in my own campaign against my players randomly. Along with some of his commanders and the other things related to him, oh, beautiful. Absolutely chef's kiss. The Death Dragons, so much fun. Everything about that part, absolutely amazing. When it comes to the helpers, I think they do a great job of picking up whatever your party might be lacking. So if your party all wants to play a bunch of martial classes, I think the magic caster helpers do a great job really filling in that role for everything they're gonna need in this adventure. The only one I think I didn't like too much was their rogue equivalent, but I'll go into more detail about that in the future video. The last thing that I would consider additional content is the random encounters tables. I find them useful if you are doing a more war type campaign. I like that extra option, I like that extra versatility, but it's not anything super amazing. There's a nice, little random encounter table. And with all that information, now you can decide whether you really want to add this book to your collection. And if your answer is no, objectively, you're wrong. It's a good book. You should add it to your collection. It's a beautiful cover. There's like, add it. This is an amazing adventure. The best adventure I've read that I'm never gonna run for my party. Only because I like creating my own world. I like having my own story. I love everything it did, and there's a lot of pieces in this story. There's a lot of elements of this campaign that I will easily rip apart and steal for my own homebrew world. I just don't like running in someone else's world. I don't like following other people's rules. But again, amazing campaign, a solid 9 out of 10. I love all the things that it provided, and even the things that I feel like couldn't be improved on, well, I'll do that in my own world. I can understand how difficult writing a good campaign might be for a writer, because they don't want to make everything set in stone, because then that puts a lot of work on us DMs to memorize everything, but they also don't want to leave things too open-ended that we have no idea what the hell's happening. So again, I think it's absolutely great. The things that I feel like you can improve on, a little bit more cosmetic, not everything as game-breaking as I might have made it out to be, but they should still be fixed. They should still be improved on. Explore a little bit more of the world, use more of the map. Don't be so open-ended all the time. But again, a great story, a wonderful read, start to finish. I'm just a slow reader. Only reason it took me so long to finish it. But honestly, I loved reading every single part of it. It's so good. The flavor, the way it describes the world, everything about it I thought was great. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who's trying to start their own world and don't really know how they want to start it, or feel a little bit overwhelmed to incorporate everything that's in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I think this book is a solid foundation for that, and giving you a strong idea of how to really narrow it down and really limit a lot of the super extraneous options. Limiting the gods, giving it a very clear definition or nature. I think that's great. I think there's so much this book can really offer to us as DMs for our own homebrew worlds. Or if you just want to run the campaign as a whole. It's very succinct, it's nice and tight, not too many plot holes, not too many things in my opinion that are glaring issues, a nice crisp adventure. But I do think it would take a while, and it would definitely take a very dedicated party to get through it. With monetary rewards not being as exciting, it really pushes the party to go,
I want to be a hero,
to really finish this adventure well. And not that people don't want to do that, but my experience says players like gold and treasure more than just praise. But maybe that's just my experience. Maybe your group's different. But objectively, this is a solid book, 9 out of 10. I would highly recommend you add it to your collection, if for no other reason than at least the cover art and the stat blocks. Hopefully you found this video helpful and enjoyable. And if you did, leave a like on this video and comment down below, what is it that you're looking for when you buy a campaign book? And if you like this review and would like to see future reviews on other homebrew supplements, get subscribed so you don't miss when those videos come out. But yeah, see you guys next time.